Digital identity is at a crisis point. Passwords have become unmanageable for most people, and mass identity threat from organisations is almost commonplace.
So what can service operators do to provide both convenience and security to their customers? To help us explore these issues, we're joined by Victoria Richardson, Chief Strategy Officer at AusPayNet, and Marc, Director, General Market Infrastructure and Payments at the European Central Bank. Welcome both to Sibos TV.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Victoria, we'll start with you. Since the internet began, we've been struggling with digital identity. Can you talk to us about the magnitude of the problem?
I think it's a really interesting phrase to start with, since the internet began, because Kim Cameron, who I think for many people is the godfather of digital identity, as long ago as 2005 said something that sort of frames what happens today. He said, hundreds and millions of people have been trained to put personally identifiable information into any site that any provider puts in front of them. And we've not fixed that problem. You know, people accept as a normal way to do business just to put their passwords, secret information into a site. And because we haven't fixed that problem, the cost of identity crime in Australia every year is $1.6 billion. And 900 million of that is attributable to identity theft, card fraud and scams. So we didn't fix the problem, and there are significant monetary implications for the economy and massive privacy invasion implications for people as a result of that.
And when you think about it, Victoria, we are at a tipping point with passwords because they have become very unwieldy, because you've got numerical and letter combinations, and also for many people totally impractical. So what do we need to do to sort that out, to make the system easier and above all safer?
Yeah. I think we just need to provide an alternative. You know, people use them because there is no alternative. We need to provide something better, and that's incumbent on all of us to find better approaches to build trust online.
Marc, people want both convenience and security in their online banking interactions. How do we balance these two conflicting things?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer. Every culture, every market, every use case can have a different answer. So it's really a matter of finding a balance between security, keeping trust in the system, keeping trust in the functioning of your economy and your currency, versus being safe and not having too much difficulty to process. So you have really to find a balance between the two, different answer in different cases. We had a lot of debate in Europe on this, with the implementation in particular of the new Payment Service Directive, where we request two-factor authentication for each payment. So it's difficult. At the same time, you have some cases where you have to pay very quick, and those two-factor authentication would be really a problem for the smooth functioning. So you have to be pragmatic, but at the same time, you have to be very strong on that.
And I guess, Marc, another complication is that there aren't any standards in digital identity. So is it something that banks and indeed businesses need?
Yes, absolutely. I think we debated in the former panel that we had that it's very important to set up network, to set up exchange of information amongst the community. Again, if I focus to the European case, we have developed EIDAS in the public sector, which is a way to identify persons with electronics. And this is being rolled out into a network so that in the future it can be used further and eventually even used by the banks and by the market. So we are looking at this, and it's very important to find this balanced way to share information.
Marc, what are the central banks doing to strengthen the financial ecosystem so that banks can remain safe in a world of growing identity theft?
Yeah. There is no magic formula to answer your question. It's a permanent function, so we have to move non-stop, to be dynamic in the way we approach cybersecurity, not only identity question, but more broadly all the question about the possible cyber threat that we are facing, to be dynamic, to create a trust environment, to exchange information amongst all the ecosystem participants. We have seen the various scenarios which happen that the quicker the threat is detected, the quicker a fraud is detected, the better for the circulation into the ecosystem of information. So this is very important, yes, that us, as central banks, we take the necessary action to push for this trust to increase and to further enhance the cyber resilience, both of the FMI, but also of the ecosystem. So we are taking actions. We have published different initiatives like Cyber EU, which is a way to organize red teaming testing for financial market infrastructures, and we will do more as we go.
And Victoria, from your perspective, what are the implications of actually integrating modern digital identities with old legacy systems that seem to permeate across some sectors of the banking community?
I think while there are legacy systems, you know, the problem of identity in the digital world is a problem because it's all digital. So I think the exposure for the banks is in their digital systems. So I'm not sure that we face such a challenge of sort of trying to add on a technology to a legacy system. And I think there are a lot of other drivers in the market around APIs and open modular architecture. The banks are moving in that direction. So I think integrating digital identity as a part of making those more secure is exactly what many of them are doing.
Veronica, what about cloud-based solutions to help banks provide greater security and convenience to their employees and customers?
So I think that cloud-based solution is part of the situation I was describing, where a lot of the services are online, we're using APIs, they're more modular in architecture. So I think there are many things that the banks can do to make their customers more secure. And in fact, they do. One of the questions on the panel is, will banks ever be able to solve this problem where they balance convenience and security? And you know they do. Every time you open a mobile app, and you do Face ID, that's convenient and secure. But the real challenge is, how do we do that in a consistent way? There are silos of convenience and security, and what we need to do as an industry is break down those silos and do it across, you know, all of our digital life.
And Marc, the bottom line is that when you're sorting out digital identity with these big transformational programs, it takes a long time. It also soaks up a fair few resources. So is there a standard approach that banks should be taking? What approach can they take?
Yeah, there is not one answer to the bulletproof answer to this, but I think indeed we are facing a lot of challenges. To find good answers to those challenges require innovation to flow in, require also the focus of making a priority between what is to be covered first. We cannot do everything at the same time. But I think the most important in all this is collaboration, cooperation, building trust with the partners. Because basically we are in an industry, in an ecosystem where all actors are concerned. We are all the good guys, if I may put it like this, while the bad guys are trying to attack, to threaten, to destabilize our systems. And we have to be as clever as they can be, and therefore collaboration, exchanging information, exchanging framework to be able to do all this is very important. In Europe, we take action in this direction. So we have created a European Cyber Resilience Board at a very high level, where we have the top organization, both on the regulatory side, but also within the ecosystem, the main actors. And we are trying to see how to further develop this collaboration and trust environment. There is a mindset change to do here. We have to make sure that when a crime happens in the cyber world, it is detected as quickly as possible and the information is shared as quickly as possible. So we always say now the question is not if it will happen, but when. But the judge of whether a threat has been well handled or not need to be assessed by the speed at which you will react, and not whether it has happened. It's too easy to say you have been attacked, you will be sacked. It's more you have reacted in the right way, and therefore you will be promoted.
A profound note to leave an insightful discussion. Victoria Richardson and Marc Bayle, thank you so much for joining us on Sibos TV.
Thank you.
Thank you.